Whoa, prepare to have your mind blown today, folks, by the transformative power of sound. In this episode, pioneering sound healer Jonathan Goldman is going to share his groundbreaking work on science and the spirituality of sound. So, we're going to discover the secrets of humming, vocal harmonics, chakra frequencies, and maybe even the lost divine name that can shift our consciousness. So, Jonathan's insights, stemming from over 30 years of research, offer a fascinating exploration into vibrational healing, potentially the medicine of the future. So, tune in and get ready to resonate to episode 2 of the Spiritual Technologies Podcast.
Welcome to the Spiritual Technologies Podcast with Travis Wright, where mindfulness intersects with the cutting edge of tech. Dive into conversations with leading experts that illuminate the path to a higher self, blending spiritual insights with technological advancements. Join us in this journey of discovery and transformation.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 2. Here we are, and I'm wearing the green today because that is the heart chakra. I don't even really like the Boston Celtics. Don't hold that against me. They just look kind of cool, so I'm just rocking the green today with the green healing energy. And you know, Nikola Tesla, he said, if you want to understand the power of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And so we're going to be covering that today. Our guest today is the legendary Jonathan Goldman. He is a true pioneer of sound healing. Like, this guy really early on, and this is exciting. I've known about Jonathan for probably 20 years, I think. No, I've not known him. This is the very first day I've ever met him. But Jonathan is the author of numerous books on healing sounds, chakra frequencies, the humming effect, the 7 secrets of sound healing, all kinds of great stuff. And he's gifted with a remarkable ability not only to vocally resonate, but he's also able to create amazing music. And so that's where I first tuned into him, with some of the music that he created. So he has explored the transformative power of sound from scientific and spiritual perspectives for over 30 years. This is really good stuff. He has been called an international authority on sound healing and a sonic master by Deepak Chopra. That's high praise indeed. So let's get ready for a mind-expanding dive into the wisdom of sound. Hello, Mr. Jonathan Goldman. How are you today, good sir?
Travis, it is a real pleasure to be talking to you and all the people who will be watching this at any time and space, because I trust that our conversation today will really be filled with all sorts of knowledge, teaching, and ways that people can somehow lead a healthier, happier, better life. So thank you for this opportunity to share using the sacred power of sound to heal and transform.
I love it. And as I said, you know, I'm familiar with some of the music that you've created back in the day. I think I even said beforehand, it's like maybe back in the day, I maybe even downloaded some songs illegally, Jonathan. I apologize. I'm so sorry. It was so good. So let's maybe dive in. Let's go back and let's ask about this. What originally drew you to the power of sound and harmonics as tools for healing and transformation? Like, was there a defining moment or an experience that just set you on this path? Like, how did this happen?
Travis, good question. And I'm grateful to say that there was sort of a really at least interesting moment when I like to say that the light of God struck me one night when I was on stage. Here's the reality of it. It was in the late 1970s. I'm playing in a rock and roll band in a seaside bar in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Come back from a break, strap on my Stratocaster, and start playing. And all of a sudden, I look out at the audience and I become aware that the music that I'm creating is one that has an ambience of negativity and violence. Now, no doubt that the different intoxicants in the club that were being imbibed at the time were helping create this ambiance. But also I realized that the music that I was creating at the time was also doing this. And I just had the thought, what if music can be used to make people feel good? Now, I've been playing professionally in bands since 1964. So And I'd never had that thought. It was always, look at me, and aren't I great, and aren't I cool? And here it was like, wow, I wonder if music can be used to make people feel good. And in about a week, that thought shifted about 10 degrees and became, I wonder if sound can be used to heal. And from that thought, the cosmos just opened up. I was literally about 2 weeks later handed a piece of paper with a workshop that was advertising sound and light healing. And I went to it and was taught by a woman who became one of my dear friends and teachers, dear friend and teacher of my wife, the godmother of our son. And her name was Sarah Benson. We call her the Divine Mother of Sound Healing. And I remember, Travis, I was sitting in a circle where people were singing my name in an exercise called the Song of the Soul. And I was holding a crystal very much like this with my eyes closed. And I got transported to this amethyst pyramid in the woods. And this light was this actually green light coming through a purple pyramid, which I didn't even know anything about crystals or pyramids or anything like that coming through. And when I came back to my body and I looked up, I said, well, I got to find out more about these quartz crystals and more about sound. After that, I had the opportunity and it was amazingly quick. There was a small group of people, of really well-known sound healers, and they invited me to go to one of their meetings, and I went. And when it was over, I was elated. I said, "This is the greatest thing." This fellow by the name of Randall McClellan, who taught actually the first college-level course in using sound and music for healing on the planet, and he was basically reading excerpts from his book called "The Healing Forces of Music." And which was unpublished at the time. And I was elated. And I said, well, this is great. When's the next meeting? And they said, no more. We can't do this. We're too busy. We need somebody to organize it. I said, hey, I'll do that. So there I was, a new kid in the block. But I began to organize this. And I knew that the first thing that you do in a lot of different spiritual traditions, if you're working with sound, if you want to give it form, give it a name. So I called it the Sound Healers Association. And this little thing grew and became nationwide. And then I got a degree at Lesley University, a master's degree at Lesley University in Cambridge, researching the uses of sound and music for healing. Shortly after that, I actually took my record company, which had been a new wave record company, and turned it into a new age record company, became one of the first spiritual therapeutic music record companies. And the one thing I didn't have to change was the name. It was called Spirit Music.
Wow.
And
How about that?
Pretty interesting. And since then, life has just been an incredible whirlwind roller coaster ride, learning and seeing and finding out how sound can be used to heal and transform, and then see all the magnificent shifts and changes that are going on the planet, to the degree, Travis, where sound healing is very big now. About 10 years ago, I was predicting that it was going to be alongside the level of popularity of yoga, and it is getting there now. So, I mean, what a blessing, and what a great, honor to be able to share with you on this, because it's so important. I think sometimes there's some really major basic aspects of the importance of how and why sound heals that I usually share with audiences, because sometimes people are missing this. And I think it's mandatory if you're either going to be engaged in the practice of sound healing or going to be engaged in experiencing the practice of sound healing.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating stuff. I mean, once I dove down the rabbit hole around, there was something along the lines of, the tone of A was intentionally tuned incorrectly, potentially, because if we had all popular music tuned incorrectly, then most of society would be just a little off, right? And so the tone of A, 440 hertz is what they decided upon, but maybe naturally it should be 432 hertz. And I started doing research on that, and I said, wow, like most of the music, like so I went in and I tuned a bunch of my favorite Beatles songs. I tuned them into 432 hertz, and I tell you, you listen to the good music in the right tone, and you can feel it. You can feel the music when the things are vibrating in those solfeggio frequencies. So maybe let's go there. So you're in a rock band,
Yeah.
and now
So,
you're doing.
Travis, if I may, and this is okay, I'd like to talk to you about what we call the 4 pillars of sound healing.
Mm,
Okay.
please.
And with that, that may give you an idea about how I am not particularly a believer in the idea that there are specific frequencies or ways of tuning. I'm not a huge believer in 432. I know
Okay.
about it. A lot of people blame me for it because I understand how it is, but it's really
Mm,
being misunderstood. And if I can give you the 4 pillars of sound healing, that perhaps will help you understand how this may be based upon your belief that it is, because there's a whole lot of, if you go on the internet and look at 432 fraud or whatnot, you'll find an equal amount of
mm.
information on people who discredit it. I'm not saying either or, but I'm going to tell you why there may be a yin and yang to it. May I do that, sir?
No, absolutely, because I think that some music feels good. Some music doesn't. We're talking about earlier. You were playing some, bad vibrational music, right? And so making music be a better vibration, I think, is what everyone would like to know. So please share these 4 elements here.
Okay, so if I can, and I'm just going to do this because these are pillars and foundational things. The first one is simply the understanding that everything is vibration. You mentioned Nikola Tesla quote, and the idea is that everything is in vibration, and if you like, from the electrons spinning around the nucleus of an atom to planets and distant galaxies moving around their sun. They're all in a state of motion, they're all in a state of vibration, which can be perceived of as being sound. Our ancient mystics and our quantum physicists are in agreement about this. Everything is in vibration. In the beginning was the Word, and the Lord said, let there be light. I can go on in all the different traditions. In the beginning was Brahman, with whom the Word, and the Word was Brahman. The Spider Woman from the Hopi tradition singing the song of creation and giving them life. In the Egyptian tradition, the god Thoth would speak an object's name and bring it into being, going on and on. But that's basically found throughout the mystic traditions of the planet, now in the quantum physics realm too. So how cool is this? A couple of things, just so people know. Sound travels as a waveform that is measured in cycles per second, and this is called its frequency. How fast or slow the sound wave is going is called its frequency, and it's measured in something called hertz. We hear from around 16 of these hertz to around 16,000.
Mm.
Now, our finny friends in the ocean, the dolphins, can hear upwards of 180,000 cycles a second. And they can probably be communicating information about either how best ways to travel through the Bering Strait, or how to get information from the Sirius star system, or perhaps the best recipes for tuna noodle casserole. But they are able to communicate, and we can't hear a thing. So there's no sound there for us that we can hear. So just understanding that sound may be more than what falls into our audible level. Number one. Now I'm going to give you the basic principle of using sound as healing. We said everything is in a state of vibration. Okay. Our body, every part of our body, every organ, every bone, every tissue, every part of our body is in a state of vibration, wherever you like, in this extraordinary orchestra that is playing the symphony of the self, where the orchestra is just playing in wonderful harmony. But what happens if the second violin player loses their sheet music? They begin to play out of tune, out of harmony. Pretty soon, the entire string section is off. Pretty soon, everything sounds very, very funky. And this is, if you like, as if a part of our body that was vibrating to its natural, healthy, resonant frequency. And indeed, when we say we're healthy, we oftentimes say we're in sound health. But the part of our body is vibrating out of its normal, healthy, resonant frequency, and it's like the string players lost their sheet music. And the basic idea simply is, if you want to basically put the organ back in balance, you restore its natural harmonic frequency, you somehow give this string player back their sheet music. It's that simple and that powerful. And mind you, almost all of the alternative sound and not only sound, but if you like, chiropractic, acupuncture, naturopathy, chromatology, which is light, all these different things have the idea of putting the body back into a state of balance. So that's the idea, that everything is in a state of balance.
So is that step 2? Then? Is that the second pillar, state of balance?
Not yet. The first one is
the first pillar.
First one is everything is vibration. That the idea is that if something moves out of its proper vibration, you want to put it back into its proper vibration. Just within that one, there are two things. Two ways that we hear, two ways we experience sound. One is called psychoacoustics, sound going into our ear, into our brain, affecting our nervous system, heart rate, respiration. The other one, called vibroacoustic, sound going into our body, affecting us down to a cellular level. Quote from New York Times science section: sound shaped into dazzling tool and can make, break, or rearrange molecular structure. New York Times science section talked about sound. It can rearrange molecular structure. It's extremely powerful. And in terms of healing, most imbalanced energy is blocked energy. You block energy, you get pain, you get dis-ease. If you can get the energy to flow, and sound is a great way of doing that, then you promote and create a healing experience. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And actually, I got a friend of mine who created, I think the name of his company is like Bioharmonics or something. He created this sound bed, right?
Yeah.
And so it's got subwoofers and speakers in it. And then you listen to the music. You lay on the bed. I got one over there in my bedroom.
I got one too.
They're phenomenal. I love to listen to like monks chanting. When you listen to monks doing Gregorian chanting, one time, Jonathan, oh my God, it was the most craziest thing. I laid down, I turned on 3 hours of monks chanting, and then I fell asleep. And then whenever it finished, I woke up and I got up off the bed. It was almost like I was Marty McFly and I could look through my hand. I was like, whoa. And then everything was back. And I was like, wow, what just happened, dude?
That's the power of sound to affect vibrational fields. All right, listen, let me get to the second one. The second, if you like, pillar of sound healing. First is everything is vibration. We got that. Second one is intent is powerful. I'm going to make this a little faster so that I don't go into too much of a song and dance about how this was discovered. But basically, I was doing my master's thesis for Lesley University. I had a stack of papers about Yo-Hi that were all these different systems of using sound and music for healing. And I thought, oh, this is right in the early 1980s. And I thought, I'm going to be the first person in the world who's going to put together all these different systems and come up with one coherent system. And unfortunately, Travis, they weren't in agreement. You'd have Dr. X would use a certain set of frequencies for one organ, and Dr. Y, you would use a different set of frequencies for the same organ. I'm going, how can this be? You have Spiritual Master A, who would be using a mantra for a particular chakra, and Spiritual Master B, who'd be using a different mantra for the same chakra. Going, how can this be? How can this be? I'm sitting rocking back and forth in my chair, and all of a sudden, this voice says to me, it's not only the frequency of the sound that creates the effect. It is also the intention of the person making the sound. Yesterday, Einstein's birthday, and I had a picture of Einstein with this, because this formula came out to me and I share it with you. Frequency plus intent equals healing. Means the sound coupled with the consciousness of the person creating and receiving the sound will create the effect of the sound, okay? So frequency plus intent equals healing. Now, back in the
beautiful.
Back in the 1980s, when I was first doing this, I'd be talking to these different scientists, and doctors saying, "Hey, have you ever thought of the importance of intentionality?" And they'd look at me like I was a madman, and which I well may be, or a man from outer space, but they weren't supposed to know that. And then, blessed be, some years later, you had people like Wayne Dyer doing his book on the power of intent. You had Motor doing his water molecules. Have you ever seen those where
Oh,
you have
yeah.
water that goes to these different vibrations, these different intentionalities, these different frequencies, and the water that is healthy and pure looks like a snowflake, and the water that is exposed to bad frequencies with bad intent, looks like mud. And here again, saying
that's so profound.
intent.
Actually, I want to say this. It's as a result of seeing Dr. Masaru Emoto's work on those, is that I have these little angel card stickers that I will put on my water bottle, because I'm like, oh man, it's like, I want love, I want gratitude, I want peace, right? So that's what I want to be drinking in that.
Yeah, so that's beautiful. So whether it's Joe Dispenza and the placebo effect, Lynn McTaggart doing her intention experiments, all these people. So I love it nowadays. I can talk about intention. People go, oh yeah. Back then, Travis, it was so hard, because they'd look at me like, what? What are you talking about, intent? What are you, crazy? And I am convinced that frequency plus intent equals healing. And because of that, the most powerful healing instrument is our voice, because we can project our intent so much easier when we speak. We can even actually use our voice as a healing instrument when we're simply involved in conversation. If we project kindness and compassion on our words as we speak. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think that, there's a lot that people can learn from this, and we're only on step 2. I love that frequency plus intent. When you're meditating, that's why the monks were chanting, right? Because is that why?
Yes. Well, I mean, no doubt that their sounds are encoded with very powerful intention. I like to believe that may be one of the reasons why a lot of my recordings work this way. I have a couple of different beautiful photographs that Masaru Emoto made of my work in Holy Harmony, which uses was actually the first time that the solfeggio frequencies were ever used on this planet. And,
Really?
very, very powerful. So I want to say that as we keep this idea of intent or belief in mind, then we move on to our third pillar of sound healing, which is that we are all unique vibratory beings. I'll say it again. We are all unique vibratory beings. And I'm going to tell you that one of the first things I do in a workshop when I'm talking about this is to ask, how many of you are allergic to penicillin? And in a workshop, probably anywhere from 10 to 20% of an audience will raise a hand. Sometimes even more, sometimes less, but it's usually about 20%. I say, okay, if you perceive that penicillin is a vibration or a series of vibrations, a frequency if you like, then for 80% of you, it's healing, but for 20% of you, it's toxic. And you think about that, and I think for the most part, it's so really, really important to realize that this applies to almost everything we found on the planet, whether it's food, pharmaceuticals, sound, X, Y, or Z. We are all unique vibratory beings. Penicillin is a metaphor for the fact that one size does not fit all. And I think that's so very, very important. One size does not fit all. And by that, I'd say, okay, sound is visceral. We feel it. And if it feels good, great. But if it doesn't, I mean, I've had people tell me of experiences where somebody gave them a quote healing sounds and they got ill from it. They said, oh, it's because they complained, but the person who did it said, oh, that's because you're X, Y, or Z. And I think that if you have an unpleasant experience with a sound or with a food or with a pharmaceutical, you should stop doing it because it's probably not right for you. So this idea that we're all unique vibratory beings. So before I go into the fourth pillar, I just want to say that if you take the concept that we are all unique vibratory beings, and when you take the concept that intent is powerful, then you can see how if I say, "Oh, Travis, here's this fabulous tuning fork," and I hit it, and you listen to it, and this is going to have this effect on you. It's not that difficult for the person to have that effect, and you to say this. I mean, this is a tuning fork that is a 256, which actually does work with 432, and I have nothing against 432, but it's no more or less special than any other frequency. Just as a thought, I am not frequency eccentric, and I'm also not a frequency file, because I think that there's an incredible smorgasbord of sound out there that we can feast in. And if we restrict ourselves to any specific frequencies, or, oh, I only want to listen to this music in this frequency because I think that it's healing, that's okay. But I think you're denying yourself a whole other plethora of sounds that heal. Just as
Oh, well, let
one
me
more
ask real quick before we go into the next one. Let's touch on that Solfeggio frequencies, right?
Yeah,
Because what was one thing that really blew me away is when I saw the the study of somatics, right, and putting
yeah,
salt on the plate and then turning
oh,
the
yeah,
sound
sure.
on, and you'd
Yeah,
see all these amazing
yeah,
sacred geometries. I was
yeah,
I was blown away by that, and I was like, wow. And then the Solfeggio frequency, certain tones seem to make
yeah, but
different shapes, sort of
yeah,
like
but,
it was
but
mind blowing.
Travis, they're no more special than any others. I know the main person who's done that, and they've done it with a lot of my different frequencies. And you can examine it, and you can examine different things. It's wonderful, but that it simply proves that all sounds that are harmonious in nature will create sacred shapes. Now, you can pull it off and say, "Isn't this better than this?" But I'd like to suggest one of the solfeggio frequencies. And I mind you, I'm the first person, I brought these down. I'm the guy who brought them down and basically made them. And I think as a sequence that it's a very powerful sequence. Okay, going all the way through it. But individually, I don't think they have that much mojo or chi, but people have assigned different attributes to them. And I'm going to ask you one thing, because a lot of people put energy into 528 as being the frequency of love.
Hmm.
You've heard that, I'm sure.
Yeah, actually, I had read that the 528 frequency is the only one of the Solfeggio frequencies. It's in the middle of the Solfeggio frequency range, and it's also green, the color of so that's the middle of the rainbow. And so it would seem that when the Beatles said all you need is love, 528 hertz would be something that is maybe part of that. That would be my assumption.
Now,
So
may I
please
ask you,
correct
sir?
me.
May I ask you, sir? A mother holding her baby
Hmm.
and cooing a lullaby to the baby. Does she need to look at a guitar tuner to make sure she's singing in 528 to project the energy of love?
That's that heart energy naturally, though. She's singing from
That's
a place
right.
of love,
So
right?
I'd like to suggest that you can take any sound, and if it's encoded with the intention,
Mm.
project the intention of love on that sound. That it's not a specific frequency. I would love it to be a specific frequency, but how limiting would that be for all of us? It's a belief
Mm.
system, and if you want to have that belief system, blessed be, go ahead and have it. But I think it's very, very limiting if you then have to look at your guitar tuner whenever you sing a sound to make sure you're singing it in the right key because you want to believe. On a level, the energy of love, the energy of compassion is a heart sound, and this has to do with many things, but including a phenomena called heart brain coherence. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, love it. Yeah, the Heart Math Institute. I've heard of them. Yeah, so it's that is it heart brain, heart math, heart something like that. But yeah, it's
Heart,
that cohesion
heart brain.
between your heart and your mind.
Right. And if I can, and we're jumping ahead a little bit because I usually do this when I work with humming, but it's okay as long as we're here. What you do is you need to take some nice, slow, deep breaths. You need to take nice, slow, deep breaths, breathing in and out through your heart, and then finding something that you feel grateful for, finding something that you feel appreciation for, something that you feel gratitude for. And this alone, breathing in and out, feeling the energy going in and out through your heart, and something that you feel could be even an ocean stream, a mountain stream, or a pet, or a child, or a friend, or whatever, something that you feel grateful for. And it's that energy that creates that heart-brain coherence, which really is it. And, here's the bottom line, Travis. If you think about it, if you're angry and you hit 528 or whatever, you think you're going to be projecting love? Seriously, think about that. You scream
Well,
at somebody.
maybe it can shift you, it would seem, right? Maybe
Okay.
they're using that to try to jolt the system, maybe? I don't know.
I think it's definitely a huge aspect of the placebo. And because it's a huge aspect of the placebo, I'm just going to say, if you want to believe that, I honor that. If you want to believe that it can be other frequencies as well, I think, when you are working, and I think the energy of love, I think the energy of compassion is vital for our planet. I just don't want to be limiting. I'm going to support it as a construct, but I don't want to support it as a self-limiting construct, because all sorts of different frequencies. I have done past for 21 years a 10-day healing sounds intensive with lots of people, and we go through all sorts of realms of frequency, and really the intentionality, the sacredness, the spiritualness of it. When we do an ohm, man, you think you have to do an ohm at 528? Think everybody's tuned to 528? You think everybody's voice works at that level? Anyway, it's not my. They don't, because we all have to. Listen, I'm going to tell you something semi-funny, which was that some years ago, these people came up with this tuning fork that they called the ohm tone. And it was based upon a mathematical principle of the rotations of the earth. It may have been true, may have not been true. It doesn't much matter. But I had a doctor one time call me. He said, I'm interested in tuning forks. I said, what do you work with? He said, the ohm tone. I said, great. I said, you realize that there is no frequency for ohm. And he said, what do you mean? I said, ohm. And I said, if there was only a frequency for ohm, I couldn't have made those other sounds. And he hung up on me. He didn't want to hear that, because he was so locked into the belief system that this is it.
Right.
So I just shared that with you. I'm going to do the last of the 4 pillars, and then we can go on. Is that okay with you?
Oh, that's perfect. Let me ask one thing real quick though, because while we're talking about these tuning forks, there's been a lot of stuff about sort of the biofield tuning, and I think there's I read this book by Eileen McCusick.
Yeah, I know
about,
Eileen. Sure.
Yeah. I don't know her. I read her book, and I listened to her Audible, and it was fascinating because she's like, "Oh, you got healing, you got energy blockages, right?" And she's able apparently to use these tuning forks or whatever to heal those blocks. What do you think of that?
100%, man. I used to teach people also. I taught that with the tuning forks, with the Tibetan bowls, and you could even go using it with your voice. You can use crystal bowls. You can use all sorts of things. But I'm going to suggest that one of the things that Eileen certainly does is she has got the intentionality of doing that as well.
Ah, okay.
But
frequency
so
plus
number 4
goes back to that.
Well, I mean, I think everything works. I think it's a feedback loop. And I think if you can feel something vibrate in you, then that's a vibration that's working with you. And we're going to talk about the hum in a moment, just because it's so important. But the 4th pillar is this. And Travis, it's something that so many people get into sound healing. They don't know this. It took me about 15 or 20 years to actually get this. When I say get it, you can understand it as a mental plane construct, but until you embody it and understand it, it's meaningless. The 4th pillar is that silence is golden. And silence, if you like, is the yin to the yang of sound. And it's actually the place where the true shifts and changes occur. If you're doing a vibration with a sound, and then you're in silence, that's where the sound is able to literally encode and create the shifts and changes. And so many people don't know that. It, if you like, is mandatory. There are actually traditions where you literally sit in silence and track the silent sound, and you get into a state of enlightenment, and people don't understand that. So one of the things that I teach, whether you're listening to a sound or making a sound, is to be in silence for an equal amount of time that you've done the sound. And really, the word silent and the word listen are anagrams. They are composed of the same letters, silent and listen, anagrams. So if you're silent and you listen within, you can tap into the thing. It's so important, particularly in this planet right now. We're so distracted by sounds from all over the place. How many of us get still, get into listening? And for example, even doing that heart-brain coherence where you're breathing, you were in silence then. Maybe listening to the sound of your breath.
That's beautiful. I love that. So there we go. We have the four pillars. Everything is vibration. Intent is powerful. Frequency plus intent equals healing. We are all unique vibrational beings, and silence is indeed golden. That's a nice little nugget right there.
Thank you, sir. Now, you got that there. I'm going to now, just for a moment, because we have forgotten, people get so into frequencies. A lot of people in sound healing are so into frequencies that they don't really understand or get one of the great powers that we have, which is the power of our own voice, whether it's singing, toning, or humming. I want to tell you some therapeutic benefits of just going, or or
Are you doing that from the back of your throat? Because I notice for me personally, I keep stress in my tongue and throat, and so I'm more up near the front. Does it matter?
Whatever feels comfortable. Let me get into how to do this in a minute, but let me give you the benefits right now, okay?
Perfect.
Number one, you get increased oxygen in your cells. Number two, you lower blood pressure and heart rate by doing or whatever single tone that you work with. I like to work with the hum, and I'll tell you why in a minute. You also get increased levels of melatonin, which enhances sleep and helps depression. You get the release of endorphins, which are the self-created opiates that work as natural pain relievers. You get increased, and this is big, you get increased levels of nitric oxide, particularly when you're humming. When you're humming, you get 15 times the amount of nitric oxide that occurs when you are just breathing, or even when you're just working with your mouth open going, Om. And nitric oxide is a vasodilator. That means that it widens your blood vessels, allowing this oxygen to flow throughout your body. And it is also an incredible antiviral agent. That's very, very cool. When you hum, for example, it once again creates 15 times the amount of nitric oxide, which will kill a lot of the critters that lodge in your sinus cavity before they get down into your body. So it's a really good therapeutic practice. And also, nitric oxide enhances neuroplasticity, which builds and repairs the nervous system. And also, making sound, your own sound. You get the release of oxytocin, which is the trust hormone. So, for example, when two people begin to make sound together, all those barriers that existed between them disappears. When you're working with sound, it's really amazing. And finally, you get increased heart rate variability, and you get the increased toning of the vagus nerve, which enhances your sympathetic nervous system, of the autonomic nervous system. Also, all these magical, seemingly natural pharmacopoeia of hormones and neurochemicals occur simply through making our own sound. Now, this is pretty cool.
That's like those are anti-aging properties. You just like named off a bunch of things. Like if you're talking to people like David Sinclair and some of these other people who are studying the aging, slowly, many of those things that you just talked about, that you want to keep your parasympathetic nervous system, you want to keep that in check and balance, and you wanted oxytocin, you want to feel good, you want like so you just named off all this. So let me ask, Jonathan, how long do you need to hum per time, or how often a day to get these benefits, or at least get to the point where it's the law of diminishing returns? Like, how long should we do this?
Great question. Travis, I'm going to basically now get into the protocols of conscious humming, which
Perfect.
basically,
Conscious humming.
right, came from our book. Here, I'll hold it up because this is when it's become. I deal with Tibetan deep voice. I deal with harmonics. I deal with all sorts of things. I never thought that probably the most popular thing that I would ever create in terms of a teaching thing was humming. But my wife, Andy, and I wrote this book some years ago, and it's really taken off. It's an award-winning bestseller. And one of the reasons was that we knew that, as I said, Travis, I would travel around teaching people all this powerful stuff using sound to resonate the chakras and do all this stuff, and these different exercises and stuff. And I return a year later, and I say, hey, how many of you are, doing these exercises? And maybe one person out of 100 would be doing it. I thought, oh my goodness, I got to come up with something simpler. And I realized that one of the problems was that people have become so judgmental about their voice because of things like everything from American Idol to whatnot, that we listen to people's voice, I don't like it, oh, that sounds pitchy or whatever, that they are really, really judgmental. So we was like, okay, what's one sound that everybody makes? My wife and I looked at each other and we went, the hum. Babies hum, the elderly hum, we hum when we're happy. Everybody hums. So we wrote the humming effect, we began to investigate it. And once again, those different attributes I was telling you about, whether it's a nitric oxide or lowered blood pressure and heart rate, which are really therapeutic for everybody, happen when you're humming. And bottom line is that I'd like to give you a few protocols so we call it conscious humming. And the reason for that is, well, there are a few things that you want to do. First of all, when you do it, you want to make sure you're doing deep and relaxed breathing. We talked about this before. Breath is the essence of not only sound, breath is the essence of life. And taking a nice deep breath when we make sound, each time we make sound. It's mandatory. The next thing, if you're going to be humming, you want to keep your lips closed. If I open my lips, it's a nice sound, but the sound is disappearing through my lips. A lot of the sound. So if I have my lips closed, I can feel the vibrations heavily over here, because remember I mentioned vibroacoustics?
Yeah.
The most powerful vibroacoustic sound that we can make is the hum. Okay? So you want to keep your lips closed. The next thing you want to do, you want to hum on one note. In other words, not zippity doo-dah. It's great if you like to do that, but humming on just one note that is in your comfortable range. So, Travis, whatever sound you make, it doesn't have to be loud. You don't have to go, It's actually pretty close to your normal conversational voice. A
Okay.
lot of people.
Personally, I'm only going to hum in 528 hertz. So
Well, if you can do that, my brother, blessings. But once again, a lot of people are looking for their signature cell or soul sound. It's probably very close to your conversational voice. So you just went, That was a natural conversational voice.
I noticed that while you were saying this, I go, I say a lot.
Now, okay, and so you want to hum in a comfortable pitch, and you want to hum for about a minute, minimum or maximum of 4 to 5 times, and then you want to be in silence for about the same amount of time. Okay? Now, would you like to do this with me as a fun thing?
Let's do it. Let's get everybody who's tuning in right now, make sure that they are tuning in, and let's tune in and let's drop out and let's do the thing here with our own natural breathing and humming.
Right.
This is great.
So the first thing that you want to do, because you don't want to rush doing this, it's not a race. So we want to basically take some nice deep breaths, nice slow deep breaths. And while you're doing this, check yourself out. How are you feeling? What are you feeling? Because you want to check out yourself after you've made the hums and see if you notice any difference in the way that you feel. So check out how are you feeling. And I'm just going to repeat. You're going to keep your lips closed. You're going to hum on one note. You're going to hum on one comfortable note, something that's comfortable to you, normally in your speaking range, and you're going to do it about 4 or 5 times. And we're going to do this. Travis, are you ready, my friend?
I'm as ready as I'm going to ever be.
All right, so we're taking a nice deep breath, and you don't have to match my pitch. Just allow yourself to feel the resonance of your own voice. Ready? Here we go. Another deep breath. Another deep breath. Another deep breath. And one more deep breath. And now being in silence for just a few moments, and because this is a video and we don't need to have people watch us be in silence, I'm going to say that how do you feel? Because I can tell you myself, I am pretty blissed out. Where did you feel?
What I noticed was the first couple, 2, 3, I was more, and then I felt the back of my throat kind of relax more, and then I was more, it felt, I could feel some tension release as a result of doing that.
Where did you feel it vibrating?
It was mostly up in here in this area, and then I could feel the pressure kind of going away, but I still had that up here, but it felt more biologically natural after I released the stress I was having.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to suggest that It might be a fun thing for you to play with. Try it in different tones. Might go as opposed to and just do it. Just do it in a place where you won't be disturbed. So, I mean, I know a lot of people who hum in their cars, and that's okay. But I get very stoned out when I do this. It's very, very.
That's good. Let me ask this real quick. So you said you don't want to hum and sing like dippity doo dah, but if I'm doing 5 or 6 of these, and then is it okay to do each one in a different tone, or should we hit every one in the same tone?
Whatever feels comfortable. If
Okay.
you want it, but I like to suggest doing it in the same tone because that way you get the vibrational resonance and it doesn't keep shifting. So the
Got you.
and then you can shift it at another time. But
Got you.
you
Okay.
know, I like to empower people to do um, what feels good for them because you want it to feel good and be fun. And you don't want to think much. It's about as simple as you can be. You don't want to overthink it. You just want to do it and have the experience. Travis, if there's one thing that I could pass on, it would be we are our own best laboratories. And
Mm,
the more you work with sound, then the more you experience sound, the more profound it'll be, and the more adept it'll be, and the more you'll know what works for you. Because even though frequency plus intent equals healing, it's our own experience, particularly with the bioresonance that occurs. And you can have a gazillion different people telling you that this works or this works until you experience it for yourself. It's not real. And once you experience it for yourself, it's real, and nobody can take that from you.
mm. I love that. That's beautiful. Let me ask this question around here. We got the 4 pillars. We've learned about humming, which is great. Frequency and intent equals healing. That's a very lovely piece of wisdom right there. Let me ask this. You've developed techniques like vowels as mantras,
Yeah,
and I find it interesting that there was a book, I don't remember who wrote it, but the 72 names of God, and
yeah,
almost
for
all of
sure.
them had like Yahweh,
Yeah, yeah,
God,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and so tell us about vowels as mantras, and what are some simple practices people can maybe use to get some effects from that generated tone?
I'd like to suggest that people check out my 7-minute chakra. It's either an app or it's a YouTube video, or we have a course on my Healing Sounds website. But I will say, you were mentioning the ah sound. The ah seems to be a sound that really resonates naturally in the heart.
Hmm.
Ma, ya, tara. Yeah, I can put my hand here. Ah, as opposed to if I go, e, try it. Go, I don't know if you can feel it through your hat, but go ah and then e. And
Okay.
now,
Oh yeah, yeah. The two different.
right.
You don't really feel E much at all right here.
No, you see, so the vowels resonate different parts of your body, and therefore,
Oh. Hmm.
and the O is going to be in the.
Yeah, it seems more in the stomach.
Yeah, so so I have a system of 7 vowels, and then these 7 vowels relate harmonically to what I call the divine name. But rather than give too much information, which will then be lost to everybody, I like to suggest that when you begin, people who, even if you've been, working with sound for decades, working with the hum is a really unto itself a major important thing. Here, I'm going to ask you to do something because most people don't know how to do this or haven't experienced this before. I want you to hum and then pinch your nose
Okay.
like this. Okay?
Yeah, you plug your nose out.
You can't hum if your nose is pinched.
Hmm.
And people go, "Whoa, I didn't know that." I say, "Okay, if you didn't know that about the hum, do you think maybe there are other things about the hum that maybe there and maybe really important?" It's the simplest sound, but it may be the most profound and the easiest. Did you know there's something, I know that you know about yoga, and I know that you know about the Om. There's a ancient yogic text called the Yoga Sutras by a fellow by the name of Patanjali's.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guru by the name of Swami Satchidananda, who I liked a lot because he was the Woodstock guru. And I first saw him at Woodstock. And it was cool because he led 500,000 people chanting together. And that was
so great. You're dating yourself. I tell you, you look like you're about in your early 50s. So you went to Woodstock. That seems impossible, brother.
Oh, thank you very much. But no, I'm a sexagenarian or whatever that is. Anyway, it's okay. But so here we go. And in Swami Satchidananda's Yoga Sutras, and this is Goldman's translate. Now, he did his translation, and my wife and I were there to teach, believe it or not, the divine name at his ashram in Virginia called Yogaville. And a cool place, really amazing place.
Right.
And there was these Yoga Sutras that he had translated, his translation. I just opened it up. It was Sutra 1.27, and it basically said something like, the original sound of creation was the humming of prana, pranava, the humming of prana. They had to give it a name, so they called it Om. And if you think about it, the Om is a name that they gave to the humming. Om. So it's a
it's fascinating. It would be called prana. Prana. That's wild.
You've heard of prana.
Yeah.
And the life energy. So the sound of life energy, the humming of prana. So you're dealing here. People go, oh, that's so simple. I can do that. Yeah, but if you experience this really deeply, it'll change your life. I have an award-winning album called The Humming, The Cosmic Hum. And it's great. It actually is a trans-dimensional, interdimensional thing. A lot of people who work with plant medicine like to have it as a background, among other things, to travel on. So once again, any sound, particularly a sound that you make, and you encode with light and love, with your intentionality, is going to be a healing sound. It's going to be a powerful sound. It's going to be a therapeutic sound. It's going to be a transformational sound.
I tell you, this is beautiful stuff that we're getting into here, because I think let's talk about your music now, because we've talked a little bit about your books and you've shared some interesting things that we can do physically. So as a musician and a composer, who are some of your greatest, maybe some of your inspirations? Is there other people who are doing similar things to this? And how has your background in music sort of helped with your whole sound therapy works?
Well, Travis, I like all sorts of different music. We shared before how I had a whole resonance with the Beatles. And in fact, they were, if you like, the reason why I picked up my electric guitar after I had put it down, because I believed that rock and roll was bad music. And then I realized that no music is bad. It's just you can't take a particular musical genre and say that it's bad, because it depends upon the people who are making the music. It depends upon the energy, and in the end, the love you make is equal to the love you take. What more therapeutic and beautiful, sacred words can that be that's encoded upon the music, as an example? So that, I like the Beatles, I like Jimi Hendrix. One of my great sound teachers was a fellow by the name of Don Campbell, and another one was a fellow by the name of Stephen Halper, and another one was a fellow by the name of John Boyeux. I've done some recordings with a lovely being by the name of Laraji, but I have to tell you that most of my recordings, it's almost as though these higher interdimensional beings take over. I sit in front of my instruments and computer, and I try crazy things. Almost everything I do is a sonic experiment. Like, I wonder what would happen if I did this or that. That's what happened with the original solfeggio frequencies. They were there as numbers. That's all they were. They were numbers in a book. I had the numbers cut to tuning forks. I put the tuning forks down and then added a sacred chant for the Christ energy. And I put that together and I created holy harmony. And that so many people have had healing from that one. I mean, I would like to suggest that if people are interested in my music, they simply say into Siri or into one of these things, play Jonathan Goldman. And you'll find me on Spotify, Amazon, all these different places. And I oftentimes try to work with the most sacred of sounds that I can find. There's one called the Merkaba of Sound that I love. I listen to it all the time when I'm in the dentist's office on a lot of levels. I'm not going to go into specifics about how and why, but all my things are done, if you like, through the auspices of the angelic realm, the interdimensional realm, the extraterrestrial realm, and the mystic masters of music realm. And not much more to say, except I'm very pleased because I find that all of my recordings are divinely inspired. Otherwise, I won't create them.
Mm. And I love that. A lot of those sounds are so peaceful, and I don't always listen to music that has lyrics, right? So because I think that I can focus better if I'm just listening to tones and sounds, and so that's one thing that sort of inspired the idea around the project I'm working on, this healing circle. Is it's like I don't need a big negative black rectangle on my wall. I'd like to have some healing sounds and cool energy vibrations coming at me and on my phone, or even in AR and VR, and having these different sort of really the one idea that I first thought of was having the Merkaba as an AR experience, getting inside of a Merkaba in AR and then having healing frequencies as the Merkaba triangles change colors as I'm inside of it. And maybe what I need to do then is also be humming, right? It sounds like, what can we do as humans? We're these spiritual beings having a human experience, and so many people get off the track, right? And it's like, I think that sound and color can bring us back to our core essence and connect back with the universe in some way.
Travis, I'd like to suggest for you, sir, that you get on your sound bed and you plug in the Merkaba of sound. And go, I have a 5-minute version of it, but I want to suggest that you do the full hour-long version and you just travel and see what happens there.
All right.
Take 2 of these and call me in the morning.
I love that. So also real quick, we're wrapping this thing up here, but you also founded something you mentioned earlier, the Sound Healers Association, and you've trained a lot of others. Is that going on still? And what advice would you maybe give somebody who's interested in pursuing a career in sound therapy? And I say that because it seems to me that sound and frequency is the medicine of the future. I think that most people just haven't realized it yet. When you talked about it earlier, at the cell level, we can blast cancer with certain frequencies. I saw a video not long ago about how every cell, when it's in perfect harmony with it resonates its own sound. Like healthy liver cells sing their own little song, right? So our body is singing songs that we never even realize that until I think where we're getting. So it's a fascinating thing to think
playing the suite of the self. Remember, everything is vibration, the whole concept of the suite of the self. Exactly. And the first thing that I think we can do, I just got to say, Travis, it's so important. If you're your own best laboratory, learn how to work with sound yourself, put yourself into a state of resonance, of divine alignment, and then you can use anything. You can use tuning forks, you can use crystal bowls. A lot of people are really big into crystal bowls. I mean, the reason I teach the hum is because some people have become very, Tibetan bowls, those are called tingshaws. And I could talk to you about, hey, put them together. No, one on top of the other.
Like this?
No, like the two cups, and you're facing it.
Okay, like this.
Put it close. Touch them with each other. What does it look like? Pleiadian hovercraft.
It does look like a spacecraft.
You think that's accidental?
Oh wow, that is interesting. I'd never thought of that. And they have such beautiful symbols on the side that I have no idea what they mean.
It's probably the Om Mani Padme Hum symbol, which is the chant for the Avalokitesvara, who is that Tonka back there. But that's a whole nother story. There's so much more. And what's interesting about the Tingshaws, for example, is that they're slightly out of tune, which causes brain wave entrainment through out of tune frequencies that now is utilized on a lot of different recordings. And the Tibetans had it hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Wow! So they had hemisync. They had hemisphere synchronization back in the day. The Tibetans, man. When I've dove into that and trying to learn about some of the stuff that they were doing and the deep chanting, and then it's just even bringing up the the Kundalini fluid up your spine, up into the pineal. Is this whoa? There's so much we don't know. It seems like a lot of this great stuff has been hidden, and we are here rediscovering it as civilization as we're moving forward.
Well, I was out in Hollywood for an album that I co-created with the Dalai Lama's favorite chant master, Lama Tashi. The album's called Tibetan Master Chants, and once again, how cool is that? I love it. So I'd like to suggest that
cool. I heard that a rap. It was like a remix of somebody doing like. It was like, whoa.
You got so. Listen, I would suggest that people go. First of all, the Sound Healers Association .org is a great website. Then come to healingsounds.com. We got books. We got all sorts of music, and we got lots of courses too. There's the Divine Name course is way cool, very advanced. People want to go from humming to the Alpha to the Omega of sound. The 1111 Ascension Harmonics Divine Name course. But there's, I'm basically suggesting that our website is an award-winning website. It's got great things, and I think people can. And there's lots of freebie downloads there too. So, I want to thank you.
I love it. Yeah, I want to thank you. You know what? This is a blessing. I mean, you in the field of studying all this stuff. I mean, you're truly legendary, and I thank you so much for coming on. I do have one final thing that we want to do here. But first of all, one of the things I like, there was a podcast called Diary of a CEO, and he has a guest on, and then the guest at the end will write a question for the next guest, and then answer a question from the previous guest. So, do you want a card from this one with this ring on it, or do you want one over here? Which one do you want?
With the ring on it.
One with the ring on it, right here. This one right here. Okay. So, that's good. This one. We had the other one was opened. Was the question the first time? So here we go. I'm gonna let you pick. Tell me when to stop.
When?
Now. Right here. Boom. This one right here, and it is okay. Bear Grylls had this question. I don't know if you can see that or not. What is the greatest wealth in your life?
That's easy. Love. Love of my wife, love of my son, and just being able to generate and receive love from others. I think that is, if you like, one of the greatest keys on our planet. If we can begin to understand and embody the aspect of wealth, then the phenomenological aspect of material gain is going to seem a whole lot less important. Because you know what? I know too many people who got lots of money and no love, and they're really unhappy. And I know people who have love, and that's all they need. What do the Beatles say?
All you need is love. And Sir Jonathan Goldman, we love you. And thank you for being on this episode with us. I have a feeling we could talk for a long time and just keep going on and on, but we got to end this somewhere because people who are tuning in got other stuff to do. So thank you. And I hope people gathered a lot from this. And any final words of wisdom, good sir?
We heal the planet. We heal ourselves. We heal ourselves. We heal the planet. We can make a difference. And and we have a choice.